Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to the episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Oh man, we got a lot to discuss today. It is a wonderful Monday. Appreciate anyone who is tuning in, whether you are live on Twitter, YouTube, or you're watching the clips and videos after the fact on YouTube. Appreciate you as always. So let's get started. Listen, I don't want to brag, and I will later, but one of my takes that have aged really, really well is Matthew Stafford is a top 5 quarterback. I remember when I said this, and I got a lot of pushback, specifically by people on this network. Whoa, you can't have him that high. Joe Burrow is better. Obviously, the big three are better. And even at the end of last season, when I said this, Jalen Hurts was getting a lot of consideration. Jaden Daniels was getting a lot of consideration. That's a top 5 quarterback. And the Rams right now, it's really hard to find a weakness with. And I had the Rams as my Super Bowl team, representing the NFC. I obviously had the Ravens representing the AFC. And so far, looks pretty good. Again, not here to brag. I'll do it at the start of the second hour. We'll do hard right, hard left. But what the Rams have right now is the formula to win. Like, they know how to do it. They're excellently coached on both offense and defense. Stafford, yes, is 30-2 probably unsustainable. Yeah, he's going to throw a couple more interceptions. He's not going to be this efficient. But Puka understands this offense, was on a record-setting pace before he got hurt. Devontae Adams understands this offense. He can just score touchdowns whenever he feels like it, apparently. The running game works. Stafford is accurate. The defense, even though they don't get, I heard Sean McVay last week on an interview say, you know what, numbers, to hell with them. They got 4 picks last week, no sacks. He's like, if you truly are getting pressure, you can feel it, even if it doesn't result in necessarily sacks or interceptions. The way they can disrupt offenses, the way they disrupted Sam Darnold, the way they disrupted Baker Mayfield. This team knows how to win. And remember, this is the team that gave the Eagles the most trouble last year. The Eagles, who were so dominant during that playoff run that we all thought, wow, how it's why we question the Eagles so much right now. We're wondering, like, what's wrong with the Eagles, because we saw how dominant it looked when it was all working. When Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, the offensive line, Saquon Barkley, the defense, and they ran through Washington and destroyed the Chiefs. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, this is one of the greatest teams ever. The one team who they were a play away from getting in position to tie the game was the game they played against the Rams. This team, you don't feel like, even though we would think should be a more finesse team because of Stafford and McVay, they run the ball extremely well. Stafford still has the kind of arm talent that even at 37, you don't fear him if he does potentially have to go on the road. Again, this is my Super Bowl team, and the reality is they can just do a little bit of everything. And that's what you need in the NFL. Because some days, certain things aren't going to work. They could win a shootout. They can win a defensive game. Stafford obviously can win a game for you. They can run the ball. They are so well coached. Everything is just working, and it's working fantastic. That right now deserves to be your, will they end there? Up for debate. But that right now is your best team in the NFL. That right now is your, if you had to do power rankings, not to be cliche, but that should be your number one. And if that's not your number one right now, you're just trying to be against the grain or say something outlandish. That's the best team in football right now. Moving on to a team that's been that for many years, the Kansas City Chiefs. And here's the thing. the Chiefs are, I was so ready to come in here because I tweeted out a few weeks ago. Again, we'll get to the hard right, hard left. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I said the Chiefs are going to lose 3 straight games, and that was the Bills, Broncos, and Colts. They went 1-2. So I was wrong, objectively. Now, did they want to go 1-2 in that stretch? No. But the Chiefs beat the Colts. I'm not, and I've been very, very hesitant to say, oh, the dynasty's over, the Chiefs aren't any good anymore. Last year, I thought it was honestly worse. Like, I think this team, objectively, despite the record, is better than last year's team. But with that being said, I think yesterday was still more of a referendum on the Colts than it was the Chiefs. Listen, I have tried to change my feelings on Daniel Jones. I have tried to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to break away from the Daniel Jones bias that I've had for years. But honestly, yesterday was a big reason why I just don't feel like I can do it. And it's not Tuesday, otherwise I'm going to talk a lot about Denver and the way that some of these wins lately have now, how teams that played the Broncos, how they look the week after, and how they've looked in these last couple of weeks. But that was bad for the Colts, man, who believe 100% in Daniel Jones. I mean, the trade for Sauce Gardner, trade away multiple first-round picks. They've obviously had this great offensive season. But Daniel Jones, when it was time to be the guy in a big game, looked like New York Daniel Jones. Now, he is better than New York Daniel Jones, but he looked like Daniel Jones. It looked like in the fourth quarter, and Patrick struggled in the second and third quarter. The Colts were up 20-9 and recovered a fumble. Like, this was just, the game was there for the Colts to have. And the Chiefs just took it from them. Like, how do you explain that? The Chiefs just took it from them. That's a really rough look for Daniel Jones and the Colts. To be in that position, to have that much of a stranglehold over the game, and you need your quarterback to be the guy in the late stages of the game when you got to make a play, when it's more than just scheming somebody open, when you got to be the guy, it looks bad. Now, to the Chiefs part, real quick, I'm still not convinced this team, like, I think this team could lose to the Cowboys this week on Thursday. And then you go to 6-6, and I think you're right back into season is on life support. Because right now, what the Chiefs are doing, these last 2 games, they're 1-1 in them, but they are asking a lot of Chris Jones, a lot of Travis Kelce, and obviously a lot of Mahomes and Reed. Mahomes, flat out, the last 2 games, has only played about a quarter and a half of good football. Something just seems off. The deep ball seems off. Something that he was historically great at for the beginning of his career and all throughout his career just feels like not quite the weapon that it used to be. And he's struggling right now. Just objectively, there's no way around it. Rashee Rice has played really well, but the 2 older guys, Kelce and Jones, I don't think Chris Jones I don't know if he has another stretch where he can do this week in, week out again. He just objectively the last 2 years has not shown that. And D tackles don't exactly, well, he can have moments and he can have games. And these last 2 games, he's been great. No doubt about it. Chris Jones has been absolutely fantastic these last 2 games. That being said, this is going to take a lot out of him. And this is going to take a really Herculean type of effort for him to continue to do this. And I'm just not sure if he can. So, again, I think this is more of a referendum on the Colts. But if the Chiefs are going to be relying on Chris Jones, Travis Kelce because their theory was that this team works, that if they can get to the playoffs and then just have a couple great games by their all-time legendary players, if Chris Jones has to play 6-7 games in a row of the former Chris Jones, A, I don't know if he can do it. B, then what's he going to look like come playoff time? So my opinion of the Chiefs hasn't really changed. I think there's still going to be a struggle for them. But they did win the game. Congrats to them. I feel like more of a referendum on the Colts. But Chiefs got the win. A lot more to talk about today. Again, top of the second hour, hard right, hard left, what I got the most wrong, what I got the most right. Kind of already spoiled a little bit of that in regards to, look, man, you know, when you're right, you're right. When you're wrong, you're wrong. You got to deal with it. If you are somebody like me and you need your energy now, but you don't like energy drinks because of the crash or the super high sugar, go get your W, man. You can use HardFoul 10 at checkout. Energy now, no crash later. As someone who used to drink 5 to 6 cups of coffee to just avoid energy drinks, honestly, I've been drinking only 2-3 cups of coffee max. Drinking my W in the morning. It's been a fantastic way to start my day. Again, you get a bunch of energy now, no crash later. You're not just jamming yourself with a bunch of sugar and other BS in these drinks. W has been a really fun change to my life and my routine. HardFoul 10 at checkout, get you 10% off. Multiple flavors. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. So I gotta be honest, and I don't talk Cowboys just for the sake of talking Cowboys like a lot of other shows do, but I can't deny kind of like where the Cowboys are right now. Let's call a spade, man. So yes, would you rather have Micah Parsons, because the idea of drafting guys is to hopefully draft a guy like Micah Parsons, 1,000%. But everybody called the Cowboys, myself included, and Jerry, an idiot, and oh my gosh, how could you do this, and all these other things, because they traded away Micah Parsons. And it felt like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I gotta give them a little bit of credit, though. The reality is they are going to be in a position where they have George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, maybe Chase and Higgins would be your only other receiving combo that I would say right now are better. I would like to say A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, but the way they're utilized isn't near the extent that somebody like how Lamb and Pickens is being used right now. So I'd say they're the second best receiver combo in the NFL currently. They're kicking ass, man. And I wasn't a big fan of George Pickens' move initially, but you got to give it up to him. They got Quinnen Williams. This defense has just flat out played better with Quinnen Williams. And they're going to have 2 first-round draft picks. If you get 2 guys, you get another pass rusher, you get another guy in the secondary, because Trayvon Diggs, to me, just is no longer it. This defense, if it gets to just okay with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, the Cowboys are a competitive football team and are much closer to being good again than terrible. And we got to give it up, too. We got to all, I think, everybody, media, podcasters, YouTubers, whoever you are, I think we all got to admit we were just wrong on Brian Schottenheimer. We were just wrong. It was objectively a move that everybody shit on, everybody said was horrible, everybody said was this, that, and the third. And the reality is he's been really, really good. It's just honestly, that's the reality. He has been really, really good. And this is a competitive team. And I know the Eagles have issues, but when you looked at that game, the Eagles didn't look overwhelmingly more talented than Dallas Cowboys. They didn't look overwhelmingly just better. It wasn't like, oh, this was a game where, the coaching failed the Eagles, or felt like this just felt like the Cowboys. And Dak is, I think it's 19-0 now, which is incredible. Against his last NFC East, his last 19 games against NFC East teams at home, Dak hasn't lost. Dak is not a superstar like the Burrows, Lamars, and Mahomes. But he is objectively, you have a really, maybe the highest floor of any quarterback in the NFL. Dak Prescott, you just can't be awful with Dak Prescott leading your franchise. And he's mature. He knows how to handle the wackiness and craziness of a George Pickens. And CD hasn't said a word, even though CD's been struggling. You don't hear drama coming out from CD Lamb. Again, you're going to have Quinnen Williams, which the defense has flat out been better. Him and Kenny Clark inside. You get another outside pass rusher. You draft someone in your secondary to go on through on Bland, and you get a linebacker in the second round. If the defense just gets to competent, which, again, only giving up 21 points, you're going to win a lot of football games that way. So I gave Dallas a lot of shit. I gave Jerry a lot of shit. I don't take any of it back. But I'm also willing to admit when it's like, okay, they got something here. They do. Objectively, they got something here. It is what it is, man. What do we say? The Cowboys absolutely, unequivocally have something here. So, shout out to them. Congrats to them again. When you make a move, I'll give this is really where you got to give Jerry credit. When you make a move that everybody in the world objectively goes, this was stupid, and it turns out, we're looking back, A little bit later, and it's like, okay, I see the vision. I get it. Makes more sense now. You gotta give him his flowers. He was right. He now has the Cowboys in a better position. And you would want, as much as you would want Micah Parsons, if I get 2 first-round picks, or if I turn Micah Parsons into a first-round pick plus Quinnen Williams, that is has a real potential to be more valuable than just Micah Parsons. Will either of them be Micah Parsons individually? No. But if Quinnen Williams can be dominant inside, and you get a pass rusher who can be dominant outside, or a corner, or a safety, I thought they were going to be so terrible they'd have a chance to get Caleb from Ohio State. I no longer think that's going to be possible because, again, that gives you a really high floor. So, got to give the Cowboys, as much as I'd like, not as much as I would love not to, got to give them some credit, man. It's just, it is what it is. Moving on to my favorite part of the show. Why would he say that? Look, I know this is now probably going on 5-6 days old, but we had a bunch of issues last week, and so we were sporadic last week, to say the least. Stephen A. Smith being in First Take, feeling like this is really for media in general, but First Take, this happened, right? So First Take, Cam Newton called Drake May fool's gold. And then they did their whole little thing of like, well, we're the number one morning show, and they run off all these numbers, and we're the best morning show, we're the biggest this, the biggest that. Everybody knows First Take. Oh, they all know who we are. Listen, the worst thing, because here's the thing, First Take could be right. First Take could be right that they are like, let's take them for their word that Drake May is lying. That Drake May he is aware of First Take. And he is aware because he heard these comments that he knows them and they're this successful and they're this big and athletes everywhere know about them and except let's say it's face value, right? Even though multiple NFL professional athletes, former and current, go, do you know what time we are doing playbook install, what time we're at practice? We're not watching First Take. Like, it might be on in the facility, but it's not what we're doing, right? They have actual, their job to do. But here's the thing, and this I think is the bigger issue. Media members need to have thicker skin, objectively. Especially national media members need to have thicker skin. You cannot be the guys who go out there and critique everybody and go, he's not playing well, and be negative whenever you want, and then be upset because someone's negative towards you? Hear me out. If Drake May just says, look, I don't know this show, I think those comments were dumb. Say not even that I don't know the show. Just say, the comments were dumb. What are you doing? Means nothing to me. Why is that any different than when Stephen A. Smith, who's going to go on today, or Ryan Clark, or anyone who's a part of that show, or anyone who's a part of national media, goes on and rips guys? Because they're going to do it. The athletes are very well aware this is going to happen. So what about, hey, they're ripping us, I'm going to rip them back? And what is the problem here? The problem is when you have thin-skinned reporters who want to go on and say, this guy's not good, this guy's terrible, I just negative. I've talked about this for years. And then they finally get ripped. It's like, well, do you know what my credentials are? Do you know what their credentials are? That's a starting quarterback of a now 10-2 football team who has played his way into MVP conversations. However many millions of people watch you in the morning to be the number one rated show, I guarantee, put your show on, and this is for any national media, this is for anybody in sports media. I don't care if it's YouTube, podcast, ESPN, FS1, whoever it is. Put your show on at the same time the sport that you cover is on. Guess who's going to do bigger numbers? If you want to talk about how big of a show you are, if you want to talk about how successful your show is, fine. You have a right to do that. Put your show on at the same time one of these sporting events that you cover is on. See who people go watch. See who people go watch. And I say all that to say is, it's a remember your place kind of thing. At no point are you ever bigger than the sport that you cover. If you are covering somebody, if you are reporting on someone, you need them, not the other way around. You need them. And that's really where this all fundamentally boils down to. And it's disappointing when it's former athletes in this situation, Cam Newton and Ryan Clark, who are like, they know who First Take is, and they're joining in with Stephen A. And I get it. Now they get a paycheck from ESPN. They're a part of this. You guys should know, Cam of anybody should know the best. And that's really disappointing. And I've defended Cam Newton a lot over these last couple of months. I defended Cam when it was Cam versus Jalen Hurts. I thought that was insane. I've defended Cam from how great he played in 2015. I've done a lot of Cam Newton defending on this show. I really like Cam Newton. But it's insane to think that you are bigger or above the people that you are covering. Clinically insane. I'm on Drake May's side here. Moving on to the other side of Sunday Night Football. The Bucs are in trouble, man. Especially with Baker being injured, but even pre-Baker injury, they were going to lose that game, meaning the Bucs went from 6-2 to 6-5, and the Bucs are in trouble. The Bucs are a really good team. The Bucs are going to win their division probably. The Panthers now have a legitimate argument that they're just as good as Tampa. Bryce Young's been playing his ass off. Both teams are 6-5. And Carolina has real momentum. They have some big wins. With Green Bay, big win. Bryce Young just throwing for these 450, 440 yards his last game. They have real momentum. Tampa Bay, who has been this, they win the NFC South, a historically weak division. Baker obviously has the big playoff win against Philly from a few years ago. And we like Baker, and he's turned his career around. But are we now starting to see the ceiling of Baker Mayfield and this version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They play the Bills. Okay, well, he doesn't look like Josh Allen, who has 6 touchdowns against them and is going up and down the field on that defense. He plays the Rams. They, as a team, they don't look like they're in the Rams class. They played the Eagles earlier this year, and even though they made the game close, they lost to the Eagles. Like, they just feel, they call them gatekeepers. You know, you get to a certain point, and it's like they are great and can dominate everybody from, you know, if this was levels, essentially, like if there was 10 levels in this game of the NFL, the Bucs would sit at like level 6, and they could beat everybody who's below level 6. But once you start getting into levels 7s and 8s and 9s and 10s, they can't hang. They just can't hang. Like, we have to now objectively look at the Bucs and go, can they keep up with the other big guys who are currently playing in the NFL? Can they compete with the Rams, the Eagles, the Lions? The Lions they also lost to. Like, this just might be the ceiling of, again, we all love the story. Baker has absolutely revitalized his career. And I know, and I'll discuss this with Dre on Thursday, and I know he's going to hate it. But can the Bucs play with the best teams in the NFL? That's a serious question. And a serious question they have to answer. They got to figure it out. Because right now, don't know if they can. And they got to figure that out before it's too late. Are the Bucs good enough to compete with the other big guys in the NFL? Serious question, Tampa. You're great when if it's lower competition, you're there. Like they will. I'm not saying the Bucs won't make the playoffs, but it is in jeopardy now. I'm not saying they won't win the NFC South, but it is in jeopardy now. A lot here to on the Bucs. Little nervous. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, hanging out with me today on a Monday morning. I know those of y'all that watch Nightcap, it's tough. And I know because I'm one of those people that watch Nightcap. So it can be pretty tough. Very interesting game. Shador made his first start for the Cleveland Browns. And look, man, at some point, you just have to watch the games and use your eyes. Forget the numbers, forget the analytics. Just watch the game and watch athletes be athletes, watch performers be performers, and watch guys who are great at what they do be great at what they do. Like we just have to do that. What Shador Sanders is objectively, day one, is better than Dylan Gabriel and was better than the version of Joe Flacco that you got this year. He should start every game the rest of the season. Even if he's not your long-term starter, he is better objectively than Dylan Gabriel and what you got from Joe Flacco. And Flacco's obviously already out of the building, so that's not really in contention, but he's better than Dylan Gabriel. Let's not act like he's not. Who Shador was yesterday was really good as far as he wasn't running around all the play. Like everybody was so worried about negative plays, and that is a big thing. As someone who watches Bo Nix every week, the one thing that he's got as a huge saving grace is he's not running into a bunch of negative plays, and that's important. Objectively, that's important. Shador, and I think Shador is even more talented than Bo is. And Shador, and this was always my biggest compliment of his Colorado, he's dealt with crap before. He dealt with no running game, the worst running game in college football the 2 years he was at Colorado. And objectively, an offensive line that got better but was bad throughout the majority of his stay at Colorado. So he's dealt with crap. He has been able to sit in the pocket, find guys. He's accurate. He was able to move around a little bit, make some plays. The play to Jerry Jeudy, which, again, people are going to kill Jerry because of the fumble, and they should. I'm not really here to do that. He had the big play down the field, the 53-yarder. And you need to instill confidence in guys. And when your best player, one of the best players in the NFL, by the way, maybe the best player in the NFL, we're going to get to him in a second, is on the sideline going, wow, that guy's got it. That Myles Garrett reaction, that should be enough to make you go, oh, yeah, of course, Shador Sanders should be our starting quarterback. Of course, he's better than Dylan Gabriel. See if Myles Garrett has made that reaction to any Dylan Gabriel throw. Go find it. See if he's made that reaction to any Dylan Gabriel throw. Like, be honest with yourself. That guy right there, that's your starting quarterback. And, again, take away the numbers. I don't know what Shador's numbers are off the top of my head, and I don't care. I saw somebody who has true potential. And that Browns team, and this is what you see. Whenever you see a quarterback go in there, this is what you realize really quickly. Do you have guys or not? The Raiders, the team they played yesterday, over-evaluated how many guys they had. Last year, because they brought in Geno Smith, who they're like, oh, he's going to show the world that we've got guys. The Raiders have two guys. Ashton Genty is not a guy yet. Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, who are great with anyone. Doesn't matter who your quarterback is. They're great with anyone. And Geno did not go into Vegas and just show Vegas that they had a bunch of guys. Shador walks in day one, and it's like, okay, the offensive line has some guys. David Njoku at tight end, Jerry Jeudy, who, again, they're going to come for the fumble. Jerry Jeudy can play. They've got this defense is amazing. You saw, yes, was it a 2-8 football team versus a 2-8 football team? Yes, 1,000%. But one of them looked like, oh, they have players. And when you get a quarterback in there, it highlights the fact you have players. Judkins and Njoku, Jeudy, the offensive line, that defense. Like, there's guys there. There's a roster there. Again, this is what the Colts are doing this year. And Daniel Jones, who I critiqued in the beginning of the show, But Daniel Jones got to Indianapolis and was like, oh, we have guys. Warren, receivers, Jonathan Taylor, maybe the best offensive line or one of the top 2 offensive lines in football. They got guys on defense. Like, when you get a quarterback, he shows that, oh, this roster has talent. Again, 2-8 versus 2-8. No one's going to walk away from that game going, the Browns are going to the playoffs. I'm not here to tell you the Browns are going to the playoffs. But Shedeur should start every game the rest of the season. He's better than Dylan Gabriel. He is. Just objectively better than Dylan Gabriel. No way around that one. The other thing of this game is, and this is to kind of piggyback off Shedeur, because the Browns have real talent, and Shedeur could help exemplify that. The best player in the NFL, unfortunately, plays on a bad football team. I don't know what we're supposed to do with Myles Garrett. I just don't know what we're supposed to do with him. I said at the start of the year, Nick Bonito is my defensive player of the year, and Nick is still in conversation, I believe. I know Micah Parsons, I think, is the betting favorite. Myles, I think, is now the betting favorite this morning. But Micah Parsons has been the betting favorite for most of the year. But Nick's been right there. Nick's been in the top 3. A lot of it's been him, Nick Bonito, Micah Parsons, and Aiden Hutchinson. And Hutchinson has slowed down a little bit. And Benito's there, obviously, and the defense is elite versus Hutchinson. The defense in Detroit is just okay. Myles Garrett's just not of this world. He's just, I don't know how anyone is supposed to, like, how high is Myles Garrett on the all-time pass rusher list? Like, ask yourself. I texted this to Tony and Will, and I was like, you know, if we just said, hey, who's the greatest pass rushers ever? How many names do we get down the list before we say Myles? Lawrence Taylor's the default number 1. I still think he'd be number 1. Reggie White would probably be my 2. How many more guys are we definitively saying before we get to Myles Garrett? Like, just seriously, like, how many guys are we saying before we get to Myles Garrett? I love Von Miller. Love Von. Von is a Super Bowl MVP, one of the greatest pass rushers I've ever seen in my life. Redefined to me what it meant to have a guy whose get off was so elite they thought he was offsides half the time. Better than Von. And Von's got more accomplishments because he played on a better team. Von's got 2 Super Bowls. Von's got the 1 MVP. Von's got over, like, Myles Garrett has 17 sacks, you guys. And he is not just going to break the sack record. Because it's one thing if you're like, okay, breaks an NFL record. You're not supposed to know he's going to break the NFL record. And here's what I mean. Tyreek Hill a few years ago, when he was in Miami, he was potentially on pace to break Calvin's record. Which Calvin's record is even easier to break because of the extra game. And Myles, again, theoretically, it's easier to break all these records because of the extra game. But we still weren't sure with Tyreek Hill, who was the most big play receiver maybe we've ever seen. A guy who could just get the ball at 5 yards and run for 50. And had otherworldly speed. This year, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, if you want to say he's top 3, not going to argue with it. He's great. Absolutely great. If he is going to break the receiving record, we're not sure. Like, we think there's a chance. He's really good. He's great. But we're not sure. We're not, like, positive he's going to break the receiving record. we're all pretty positive Myles Garrett's going to break. Because you just can't. I've said this for a long time, and I've never understood why it was not more common knowledge. The best players, to me, on offense and defense, take quarterback out of the situation because obviously everything they do. But I always said, give me a pass rusher who you are forced to double team, or give me a receiver who you're forced to double team. Because I've always thought the best thing you could do on a football field is distort it. Can you turn the game into 11 on 10? That's it. Can you turn the game into 11 on 10? 10 guys are playing for the other team, and 11 guys are playing for our team. Because if you take out a guy, or I guess I'm sorry, and this would be 10 on 9. Because if 2 guys are forced to deal with you, there's only 9 guys left on offense, or 9 guys left on defense. And then I still have 10 players. That's the best skill you could have. And Myles doubles down on that skill because not only did he double team him, he still is getting all these sacks every single time. Like, and I get it, the Raiders aren't great, but he was doing this to everybody. He was doing this to New England. He's doing this to everybody. Like, there is no, Myles Garrett stopper. I don't care who your left tackle is. Garrett Bowles, Trent Williams, take your pick. He'll beat them all. He's that dominant right now. So he's not only distorting the field because you play with the wrong amount of numbers, he's still making impact because he's still getting sacks. He's still affecting the game in a traditional way. This is, when you go to S-tier defenders, like the greatest you've ever seen, like for my lifetime, obviously, like I got to watch Ray Lewis, I got to watch Ed Reed, I got to watch Champ Bailey, I got to watch Luke Kuechly, Aaron Donald. Like, I've seen some all-time Patrick Willis, like all-time great defenders. This is different. Even the other best defenders in football. Pat Surtain, amazing. Best corner in the game. Impact-wise, a corner is just not as impactful as a dominant pass rusher. And the dominant pass rusher. Just objectively the facts. Like, Pat Surtain could, yes, is it great if you could theoretically blank one of the best receivers in football? Yeah. But you know what's even better? And I've learned this watching Denver's defense this year. Just hit the quarterback every other play and see how it goes. Just like, it's incredible, man. Myles Garrett is just a monster. Just a fucking monster. It's so incredible, man. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back with hour 2. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for being here with me as always. Listen, it is a Monday, so that means we got to start off the second hour with hard right, hard left. Excuse me. Yeah, it's Monday, so we got to start off the second hour with hard right, hard left. What we got the most right, what we got the most wrong. And it's, a real man admits when he's wrong, and he brags when he's right. So here we go. Starting with what we got wrong, and I alluded to this in the first hour of the show. I tweeted out, Chiefs are going to lose 3 straight. I was wrong. I thought Bills, Broncos, Colts. I haven't been super high on this Chiefs team, and I wanted to put my takes where my mouth is and go, hey, I think they're going to lose all 3 of these games. They lost to the Bills. Obviously, that game, the Bills game the Bills beat them every year in the regular season, not in the playoff. And it just felt like, okay, I still think that's going to continue. The Bills just find a way to get up for that game in a way that is really unique. Doesn't matter where it's at. Obviously, it was in Buffalo. But so I was like, I felt confident Bills are going to get that. I've been saying the Denver game was a little more fan pick / I had to be more confident in, because the reality, even though Patrick Mahomes has not played statistically great against the Denver Broncos, he was 13-1 heading into that game. And I said, hey, I thought the Broncos were going to be a 13-win team, and in order to do that, you got to win these kind of games. And Denver did exactly that. Bo played great from start to finish. The defense was amazing as expected, and they beat Kansas City. So fantastic job there, right? Now, the other part here is which we needed part 3 to go down yesterday, and unfortunately it didn't. So the Colts dominate that game, the first 3 quarters, and they let Kansas City do what Kansas City has done. And Kansas City, the more you look at them, and I should have included this in the first hour segment, but it's been really good. Dynasties, if they truly end, usually are unbeatable, feel invincible, dominant team. And then you see them slow down a little bit, but then they always get one at the end that you don't expect. The Spurs did this. That 2014 Spurs championship was like the last bit of that Spurs greatness. No one expected them to get it. They were still obviously a really good team, but it was like, oh, wow, you guys came back and beat LeBron and the Heat again. Okay. The Warriors did this the year they beat the Celtics, 22. It was like that last bit of, again, the Warriors are still relevant. As long as Steph is there, they will be still a good team on some nights. But that was like the last of their pulling out title hopes. And it's still, because of that run, Draymond still thinks he can talk certain ways. Like, you get that last one that you just squeeze everything out of. And not that the Chiefs won't be able to retool into potentially another dynasty because you have Mahomes. And as long as you have Mahomes, you're going to feel like you got a chance. But again, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce being this long into their career and they're no longer the same players. Like, this form of it at least feels like it has definitely died down. And is last year actually the year where they got that 15-1 record, or it was basically 15-1. It ended up being 15-2 because they didn't play week 17. But that last stretch, was that the last bit of let's pull everything out of this and see what we can do? Because that's what yesterday felt like. Yesterday was this Chiefs team as currently constructed. What they can do is they can hang in games close, not get blown out. And then Mahomes, does he have it for another fourth quarter? And that's how this team has to win. They just got to have it. And against the Colts, Daniel Jones wasn't it. Daniel Jones wasn't it. Like, just objectively, he wasn't it, man. He could not compete in the fourth quarter. He was not able to make the big time throws. He was not able to, when you need to be bigger than the scheme, when you need to be bigger than just a coach getting guys open, when you need to be a guy, you need to be the guy who can make throws, when you need to be the guy who is able to put the ball where you need to be, get the offense. Again, they had an early turnover, which kind of gifted the Colts a touchdown. They were up 20-9. The Chiefs just fumbled the ball, and excuse me, the Colts just couldn't figure it out. Just could not figure it out. And so, congrats to the Chiefs. They won the game, and that's how this version of them have to play. I thought they were going to lose 3 straight. Josh Allen helped me out. Bo Nix and the Broncos defense helped me out. The Colts, who are now going to be unfortunately put on, like Broncos basically avoided fraud watch, or they got themselves off of fraud watch with that win. The Colts are now, unfortunately, until their next big win against a big-time playoff team, are going to be on quote-unquote fraud watch. Fair or unfair, that's how this goes. Oh, man, I got something in my eye. So, the Colts couldn't do it. I thought the Chiefs were going to lose 3 in a row. I would have come in here and bragged and said all this stuff, and I was ready to celebrate. I'm ready. You have no idea how much I want to dance on the Chiefs' grave. But I can't do it yet. Can't do it. I'd love to. Trust me. Would really, really love to. But I can't do it yet. So, hard left for this week is, I was wrong. I thought the Chiefs were losing 3 straight. I was wrong. Objectively, no way around it. They did not lose 3 straight games. Now, if the Cowboys beat them on Thursday night, all right, let me stop. Moving over to hard right, Matthew Stafford is a top 5 quarterback. When I said this, I got ridiculed, laughed at, told how dumb I was, and told I don't know ball. Primarily from people on this network. Where we stand now, tell me where you got Matthew Stafford ranked. Who's better than him? He's objectively playing, and I think these guys are still better, but he's objectively playing better than Mahomes, top 1, Allen, top 2, by most people's standards. I want to make sure I'm not hypocritical here. I have my quarterback rankings. I had Lamar over Allen, but I think the consensus is Allen's better than Lamar. I don't believe that, but that's probably the consensus. He's playing better than Lamar, who's obviously dealing with some injuries right now and is not nearly as explosive and elusive as he normally is. Burrow's hurt again. Jalen Hurts, who got a lot of love for that top 5 spot after the Super Bowl run. Yesterday, he played really good, but blew a 21-point lead, and the offense just has not looked competent all season, so can we give him a top 5 spot? A lot of people put Jaden Daniels in that top 5 spot after his rookie year. There's people who put C.J. Stroud in his top 5 spot after his rookie year. Like, the reality is, I got a lot of crap for it, but Stafford's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football, and right now, I think he's closer to 3 or 4. It's hard to crack that top 3 because they're all theoretically in their prime. And because Lamar's got multiple MVPs and Josh Allen has an MVP and Mahomes' resume is out of this world, it's hard to say he's in there. But if you said today, Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford, and this is what I got a lot of crap for, I think he's better than Joe Burrow. He just is. 30 touchdowns, 2 picks. He is guiding at any given Sunday, the best offense in football. Like, this looks like, and understand stylistically, what Brady looked like from 2013 to 2018. Where a guy who just had such absurd mastery of the position. There wasn't a defense you could throw at him that he didn't understand. He knew where everybody was supposed to be. He had mastered an offense. And so it didn't matter. Obviously, Stafford hasn't won at the rate Brady has, so I'm not trying to make that comparison. But just a guy who has mastered playing quarterback. Truly, just a guy who has mastered playing quarterback. That guy currently is Matthew Stafford. He sees everything. He knows where to go. Whether you're blitzing him, you're playing zone. He can take any defense. He's thrown 5 touchdowns in the game this season. Yesterday, and Baker is a borderline top 10, maybe in a lot of people's top 10. It didn't look close. Stafford looked like the way better player. The Rams are the way better offense. Stafford has just mastered the position of quarterback. There's nothing you can throw at him that he hasn't seen. And he's a top 5 guy. This is why I had so much confidence. The Rams are my Super Bowl pick for the NFC. And the Rams are not just, and that's with, go look at, and again, he has played, like one of the knocks on Stafford has been he's receiver dependent. Puka missed time earlier this season. Stafford didn't miss a beat. Devontae Adams, yes. Does he look great right now? Yes. Did he look great? Does anybody still saying Devontae Adams is him after Oakland? Or I keep calling him Oakland. After Vegas, I will get that right one day, I promise. People thought Devontae Adams lost a step. Now, the reality is Vegas is just a dumpster fire, and they're right there with the New York teams as far as you get away from them, you get away from Vegas or New York, your life gets better. It just is what it is. And so when you have these and when you are identifying, he's played without Puka, he's played without Devontae, with Puka, without Puka, some offensive line injuries, different guys on deep. Like, he has just mastered the position in a way that, what do you do to him? You try to hurry him up. He knows how to beat you quick. Do you play coverage? He knows how to beat that. He just has a mastery of the position and the level he's playing at right now. Not only is he the MVP frontrunner, it means I was justified because it's not like the Rams have done some huge overhaul since I've said this. Yes, they got Devontae Adams, but again, Devontae was not considered what he is. How he's playing right now is not the level people thought he could still play at. A lot of this is Stafford. And does he have a great head coach in Sean McVay? Obviously. But who doesn't have a great head coach that's at the top of this is kind of the, I don't want to say they're bad coaches, but this is kind of what does make Lamar and Josh Allen so unique, is that it feels like out of all the guys who have great offensive head coaches, and Zach Taylor can run an offense, or call an offense. His defense is all-time horrible in the trash in Cincinnati, but Zach Taylor can call an offense. He had Joe Flacco throwing multiple 400-yard games at 59 years old. The great quarterbacks generally have a great offensive coordinator. Mahomes, Reed, Stafford has McVay. That's just the reality of the situation. The greats have great offensive coordinators. Lamar and Josh Allen are kind of weird and unique that Josh obviously has a defensive head coach, and his defense isn't playing well, and he still is able to go out there and give you some of these superhuman efforts. And Lamar has a former special teams coach who, again, Tony's wanted to fire on multiple occasions. So, yes, he's got a great offensive head coach. But the reality is they're just a great team. And Stafford is a great player and a top 5 quarterback, and he's been a top 5 quarterback. So, hard left. Thought the Chiefs were going to go 0-3. Hard right, Stafford, my top 5 indication. It feels good after last night. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in on a Monday morning. So we got to talk about a couple things here really quick, and it's regards to the one. Now, some of the one seed, and I'm hoping it doesn't come down to this, is going to be held. The Patriots obviously lost Will Campbell potentially for a few weeks, also their guard, and we'll see how that affects Drake May. But the one seed has basically come down to it's either New England or Denver. And New England has... Now, I know New England's played a really easy schedule. We'll get to that in a second. But if they need to be able to keep Drake May upright, because that's the one problem right now with Drake May. I don't want to say it's a problem, but it's definitely a concern long term, is that he gets hit a lot. Now, he has an all-time completion percentage. I think it's still like at 75, maybe dropped down to 74 after yesterday's game. But some of that is because he takes some of these sacks and he holds on to the ball. He doesn't throw the ball away. And that's part of why his completion percentage is so high. He's obviously incredibly accurate. He's obviously a great deep ball thrower. But some of the completion percentage is, I'm not going to take the sack. I'm going to take the sack. I'm not going to throw the ball away. And now, with your starting left tackle potentially missing several weeks, you got to throw the ball away, Drake. You cannot continue to get hit at the rate that you've been hit. That's just not good long-term for your success, health, and or career. Because no one is designed to take hits from 250 to 300-pound men all the time. Like, if anybody was, it would have theoretically been Cam Newton, who was just bigger than the guys trying to hit him. And even he broke down early because he was taking too many hits from guys who were 250, 300 pounds. So they need to figure that out. The race for the one seed, though, is going to be incredibly important because, yes, nobody wants to play Kansas City round one. And that's I think we're giving Kansas City a little too much credit because despite the fact that we know how Kansas City has to win. And I think we're at a point where we know all these teams have to play to win. Like, Kansas City's got to keep the game close. Hope Patrick can pull it off in the fourth quarter. The Ravens, it's got to be either a Lamar masterclass and or this defense is finally starting to round itself into shape. The Bills has to be a Josh Allen masterclass. The Colts, it needs to be a Jonathan Taylor heavy imprinted game. The Patriots, Drake May has got to be the guy. And Denver, primarily, it's got to be defense. Like, we know how these teams have to win. And so, do you want to play Kansas City if it's your first playoff game? Considering the Colts, Broncos, and Patriots haven't had a ton of playoff games as of late, so your first playoff game is going to be a really big deal, especially at home. And do you want Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs walking in there if they're the 7th seed? Maybe get the Jaguars as the 7th seed, which if that's the case, all power to you. I'd want the Jaguars. I don't believe in Jacksonville at all. I'm sorry, Jacksonville. But the one seed now, again, health is going to matter a lot. And also, can you just avoid the thing that loses you games? And that's what's going to be tough, I think, down this next stretch. And that's what's going to really make or break. Can the Colts avoid the Daniel Jones disaster class? I don't think yesterday was a full-on disaster class. It was obviously really bad. The Steelers game was a disaster class. But can you avoid that? If you're the if you are the Patriots, can you avoid Drake May just getting blown up every other play? Because, knock on wood, again, no one's designed to get hit this much. If you just get hit to the point where it starts to affect your play, not even if you have to miss games, or not even have to miss time, not even putting injury, but if it starts to affect your play because you get hit time after time, throw after throw, and then the Broncos, can you keep your offense engaged enough where you're not running your defense into the ground? Denver has Washington coming up. I think the Patriots are on a bye. Denver's got Washington coming up, Sunday Night Football, and it's going to be a really big – this is where coaching is going to – we're going to see how great is the coaching in Denver. Are you going to come out after one of your biggest wins in years against the Kansas City Chiefs? And are you going to be able to put on the kind of performance that you need to in order to beat the Washington Commanders, who are injured. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play in the game or not. It would be, in my opinion, medical malpractice to put Jaden Daniels out there against that Broncos pass rush after being injured and then coming back for that game. It would not look good. But your offense has to be, can you put together an offensive game plan that looks like last week against Kansas City, where, again, you're not probably going to be this year a 30-point offense with bonus. Just not going to happen. But you need to be good enough that if you are can you be sustainable enough that you're not going to drive your defense into the ground? Like, this is where it's going to come down to, because you want home field. If you're Indianapolis, you want everyone to have to come inside the dome. You do. If you're Denver, you want guys to have to go play where it's cold, and you kind of let the weather dictate and go, hey, no one's going to be a great offense here in Denver, Colorado when it's 30, 40 degrees outside. We might not be a great offense, but you damn sure aren't going to be a great offense. And if you're New England, again, that same kind of factor. They play great at home. You're going to want that, especially for a young team. Because and in the NFC, going over to there, again, health, and can you just not do the things like Lane Johnson for the Eagles, I do think was obviously noticeable yesterday. They've already struggled all year not running the ball very well. Lane Johnson being out and here for another couple of weeks is obviously going to matter. But it's them. It's the Rams, who they do have the tiebreaker over. But if you're the Rams or the Eagles, the Rams right now just feel like a well-oiled machine, and they're going to race to the 1 seed is what it feels like. The Eagles, can you keep the turmoil of A.J. Brown and everything going on? Can you keep it to a minimum or keep it under control where you can go and still get the 1 seed for yourself? It's going to be tough. And so the seeding and the seeding matters. Look at the percentage of 1 seeds that reach the Super Bowl. Like, the seeding matters. And if you feel like the 1 seed is not, I don't believe, even with the AFC having quote unquote newer 1 seeds, I don't think we have a Tennessee Titans Ryan Tannehill situation where it was like, oh, this team's clearly not the best team in the AFC. They got the 1 seed through some odd circumstance. And if you're Patriots fans, by the way, screw what people say about the schedule. This is the other thing we have to say. This has become some of the dumbest discourse on football. Well, your schedule's easy. Who have you beaten? How does it look? This has become such dumb discourse. Can we just, for like 2 seconds, breathe and use our brains? When people say your strength of schedule, like for this season specifically, it's like, oh, well, look at all these teams. They have this combined record. Well, if you beat all the teams that are on your schedule and you play in a good division or a division with another really good team, meaning you have comparable schedules, the Bills and Patriots are going to beat a lot of the same teams. Thus, those teams' winning percentages are going to go down. The Patriots and Bills' winning percentages are going to go up. The AFC West, the Broncos beating a lot of the same teams that the Chargers are, beating a lot of the same teams the Chiefs are. That means their winning percentage is going to go up, and the other team's winning percentage is going to go down. And who cares how it looks? Winning in the NFL is hard. Ugly wins, and here's the other problem. It's not just ugly wins. This is my biggest issue, and I feel bad for former defenders, and I've seen a lot of them on podcasts and YouTube channels, and they've been frustrated about this. We only call it an ugly game if the defense is playing great. We don't call an ugly game an offense if one of the greatest games ever, according to anybody you ask, is Rams-Chiefs from however many years ago is now, Goff versus Mahomes, the 54-51. That is considered a masterclass of a game. There was no defense played. There was multiple turnovers. 50 points obviously scored by both teams. What are we talking about? And that's considered one of the greatest games ever. I grew up where Ravens Steelers Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Haloti Nada, James Ferrier, James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, Casey Hampton, where they would play 9-6 games deep into the fourth quarter. And you knew that was still a really good football game. Guys were hitting hard. Guys were playing great defense. The pass rush. They were just better than the offenses. And we never came on here and said, man, what an ugly football game. No, it was a, still to this day, talked about, what an AFC North slugger. What a, oh my gosh, you see the way they were playing football. That was real football. If defense is half the game, or a third of the game if you want to throw special teams in there, then we can't just call great offensive performances great games and bad offensive performances bad games. Let's give the defenses a little bit of credit. Can we just do that? Sometimes defenses just are playing better than the offenses. They have a better game plan. And those games aren't ugly by the offenses. They're just great defensive games. So what we're calling ugly is just a great defensive game plan. And if you want to hire a defensive coach and they get hired for head coaching opportunities, like Jim Harbaugh is beloved, right? He's not necessarily a defensive guy, but Jim Harbaugh is beloved, right? He is considered one of the best head coaches in the world of football because of his success collegiately and professionally. And I would agree. And it's a fair assessment that he is great and he's done it college and pros. And his ideal game would be, and we love Justin Herbert, and they're throwing the ball more this year. But his ideal game would be 40 rushing attempts, somewhere between 150, 200 rushing yards, and a dominant defense. And he would love to win games 17-7. Just physically beating the crap out of the other team. And we'd call that ugly. We'd call that a bad win. Like, if defense is half the game, we got to stop calling defensive performances ugly games. We do. Like, it's just, it's logically insane that we go, oh, this was a bad game. Why was it a bad game? Well, because the defense played too well. Okay. That 18-15 game, I'm going to get into Denver more tomorrow. I will discuss how annoyed I've been with the way they've been covered and the way that how some of these wins lately have looked. But let's give the defense some love. So the defense is some credit. They played too. They're paid to. You saw teams like the Texans played a great defensive game. That wasn't just a Josh Allen disaster class. That was a Houston Texans defense masterclass. Let's give them some love. Let's give them some credit. The Chiefs yesterday, their defense played amazing. Did they give up 20 points? Yeah, but it was a short field, and only really one really good Colts drive, one short field touchdown, and the rest, the Chiefs were lights out yesterday. The Broncos defense against the Chiefs, masterclass. Wasn't ugly, just a masterclass of a defensive performance. And we need to credit when people or when defenses are having these great games and let them know, hey, that's a quality win. That is a quality game because the defense stepped up. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back here to close out the show for Monday. So ESPN they're really good at these. They are putting out another documentary, and it is called Booyah. It is the story of, in my opinion, whatever you want to call this, sports media, sports anchor, just anyone in this space, whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, the greatest to ever do it. And that's Stuart Scott. So let me be very clear here. Stuart Scott was amazing and left behind a legacy that very few people can, especially in this space. I remember when I used to walk home from my middle school, and it was always a really big deal to be home by 4 o'clock. And that's because Stuart Scott and Chris Berman were the anchors for that 4 o'clock Sports Center. And I always wanted to be there at the start of the show. I wanted to see those two specifically. I wanted to see Stuart Scott, and Chris Berman is great in his own right. I wanted to see Stuart Scott talk about sports, talk about what was going on. It was not team specific. He could have been talking about the White Sox. He could have been talking about the Mariners. He could have been talking about the Minnesota Vikings. It did not matter. He was just a true joy to watch. That was the Sports Center I grew up on. And when people say, kids don't necessarily understand when they see someone that looks like them and they see someone that means more than maybe they can explain. I might not, as a 10, 11-year-old, be able to tell you seeing Stuart Scott made me want to do this. I can tell you as a 30-year-old that it did. I can tell you as a 30-year-old the impact Stuart Scott had as far as creatively, how interesting, how well he did this. But I couldn't tell you that as a 9 or 10-year-old. But it doesn't make the impact any less. What Stuart Scott did was he made sports fun, he made them relatable, and he added a flavor to them that very few people have ever been able to get to. And he did the number one thing that Stuart Scott did, and we all struggle with this. Anyone who's ever tried to be in this space, I don't care if it's sports, I don't care if it's whatever you're trying to do. The hardest thing when it comes to content creation is, can you be authentic? Can you be yourself? And it's really tough, because it's not just a matter of, can you be authentic and be yourself when it comes to, trying to, whatever you're trying to promote, whatever you're trying to talk about. But can you be authentic and be yourself? Because we all have influences. We all have people that were like, I like the way they do this, so I want to do that. I like how creative he is, and I like the way he talks, or I like the way she talks, or I like what she does, her mannerisms, this, that, and the third. And we all go, oh man, I really wish and you start to incorporate that. You hear this all the time in hip hop with rappers, of rappers saying, oh, I sounded like this dude, or I sound like this dude, because that's what I grew up listening to. Stuart Scott was authentic from day one in a way that very few people have ever gotten. What's our problem now with most sports media personalities? The guys who are at the top of the mountain don't feel authentic. Take your pick. And I don't want to necessarily I don't want to use this video, which is to highlight and celebrate somebody who I admire. But take your pick. You know who they are. They don't feel authentic. It feels like it's part of the show. Stuart Scott never felt like he was part of the show. He felt like him. He felt like Stuart Scott. And we miss that. It's part of why, as much as it's been a nightmare to try to manage, it's why HardFoul has 3 shows. Because they're authentically me. I'm authentically a nerd who likes to talk about anime and manga. I'm authentically a hip-hop fan who likes to talk about the kind of music that I like. I'm authentically a sports fan who loves sports like a child in a way that anyone who's rational would not condone or agree with. That's who I am. That's the way that I know how to be authentic. That's the way that I pay tribute in my own way to a guy who inspired me. A guy who, to me, is still and forever will be the bar. I can't wait to watch this documentary. I watched the tribute that they put out because it's been a little over 10 years since he's passed, and it's just he's incredible, man. Like, when you go back and watch that, Stuart Scott would work in 2025. He would work in 2015. He would work in 2000. Like, he would put him in any era of this. Man, he'd be the best. Put him against anybody. He would be the best. To be that authentic, to be that original, to have that kind of style, to have that kind of way to portray yourself that is not no one ever looked at Stuart Scott and said he sold out, but he spoke in a way that was direct. It was unique. He didn't have to betray who he was, even though at that time, everybody told him to. Everybody would have said, man, what are you doing? But he was always himself. He was always authentic. He always handled himself with class, grace. Take your pick. A truly an amazing man, an amazing influence from everything he did. Again, whatever you want to call this. Sportscaster, sports anchor, sports media personality. No one has ever been better at this, in my opinion, than Stuart Scott. I can't wait to watch Booyah. Rest in peace to, in my opinion, the greatest to ever do this. Rest in peace to a man that, even if he never met me, left a huge influence on me. Stuart Scott's the GOAT, man. Rest in peace. Well wishes to your family. And I hope ESPN obviously does right by you and this doc. Just an amazing, amazing legacy, man. Not much more else I could say. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with me today, and I will see you guys